Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. You know, it's been about a while since I talked about Star Wars on my show, and while I am excited for Episode 9 and the new Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, I'm kind of disappointed. Because while Lucasfilm is planning more Star Wars films in the future, I'm sad that I couldn't get a reservation for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. However, today we are not going to talk about something Star Wars related, but we'll get to one later this month, I promise. But did you guys know that George Lucas produced an animated movie not long after he wrapped up with the original Star Wars trilogy? Well, that movie is what we're going to talk about today. And trust me when I say that this movie may interest you. So, released on August 5th, 1983, the movie is Twice Upon a Time. So, let's get started. Once upon a time, there were some people called the Rushers of Din. Each night as they slept, sweet dreams were delivered to them from sunny Frivoli, while nightmares came to them from the mysterious Murkworks. But the malevolent master of the Murk, synonymous Botch, was not content. He wanted the Rushers to have non-stop nightmares. To do that, he would need to gain control of the cosmic clock. To accomplish this, he kidnaps the deliverers of the dreams, known as the Greensleeves and the Figment of Imagination, and then tricks Ralph, the all-purpose animal, and his pal Mumford into stealing the mainspring from the cosmic clock. Realizing they've been tricked, Ralph and Mumford try to get the spring back and prevent Botch from unleashing his nightmare bombs. Along the way, they get help from their fairy godmother, Greensleeve's niece, Flora-Fauna, the junior varsity superhero, Rod Rescueman, and Botch's own head nightmare writer, Scuzzbopper. So, what do I think? Well, as a person who's never seen or heard of this movie until seeing Animat's Top 10 Underrated Animated Films and the Cartoon Heroes review last year, this movie really surprised me. But let's move on to Mustang notes. The movie was directed by John Cordy and Charles Swenson. It is the first animated movie produced by George Lucas. The film uses a form of cutout animation which the filmmakers called Lumage, involving prefabricated cutout plastic pieces that the animators moved on a light table. The film features improvised dialogue and a visual blend of live action, traditional 2D animation, and stop motion. Now, the studio distributing Twice Upon a Time, the Ladd Company, was nearing bankruptcy, and they had a choice of either putting the movie into a limited theatrical release or a worldwide release. Facing a similar difficulty with The Right Stuff, the Ladd Company decided to release Twice Upon a Time into a limited release, and there were a few early screenings of the movie. Both this movie and The Right Stuff failed at the box office, causing the Ladd Company to shut down. Also, I have heard that there are two versions of this movie. One is with cleaner language, and the other with adult language. Unfortunately, due to the different versions, Cordy wasn't very happy. You see, he wanted his cast to stick to the script, but the actors wanted to be loose with their line deliveries. Gee. Now I'm starting to understand how several of my directors at Musical Theater Village felt when some of my friends did improvise without permission. Also, Cordy didn't like the adult cut, which was aired on HBO. So if you want my advice, watch the clean cut, because I believe sometimes adult films are a bad influence for families. Now, despite all that, I think this movie is very interesting. For example, the animation kind of reminds me of some of the shorts that I've seen on Sesame Street, which use the same animation. No surprise, since John Cordy used to work for CTW. However, there are times where the animation loops and goes pretty slow in a few parts of the movie, but to be honest, that's not really that big a deal. Plus, I've heard that one of the guys in this movie's team was Henry Selick, who was placed as sequence director. Now that's pretty cool. Plus, I do like the setting in the different places of Din. They are known as Frivoli and the Merc Works. To me, the Merc Works is a very creepy and eerie looking factory town, and Frivoli is a very bright, cheerful, and peaceful place. As for the live action settings, well, in my opinion, they don't have that big a part of the movie, but I still think it's clever how it's set in black and white. And for some reason, the movie calls humans rushers. Plus, in my opinion, I don't mind the improvised dialogue, but sometimes the actors do trip and hiccup over their lines. Anyway, one of my favorite parts of the movie is the opening song, Heartbreak Town, sung by Bruce Hornsby, while we're introduced to the movie's characters. In my opinion, this scene is pretty similar to the opening to Disney's Robin Hood. Plus, I think the song playing in this part is very hardcore. Makes me wonder, what is up with forgotten animated movies and awesome songs? Also, another song that I like in this movie is the ending title song, Twice Upon a Time, sung by Maureen MacDonald. To me, this song is another great song, especially with the saxophone playing in the background. Man, this movie really does need a soundtrack on iTunes. What also surprised me about this movie is that it was released to DVD on my sister's 20th birthday, September 29th, 2015. You know, if I had known about this movie, I would have blogged it for her back then, but since I didn't know about it, I blogged The Princess and the Pea instead. And trust me, I don't regret blogging that movie, because I did find it equally as underrated as this. Anyway, back to Twice Upon a Time. Another thing to mention is the plot involving these little guys known as the Figmen. These little creatures who work for Greensleeves are dispensers of good dreams. To me, they kind of remind me of the Spirit Dream Eaters from Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Well, almost. And of course, not long after they start to deliver good dreams to the Rushers, they, along with Greenie, get kidnapped by Synonymous Botch's nightmare vultures. Well, at least Princess Luna and King Morpheus can still protect people from nightmares, but those two films are just completely different universes. Anyway, there are some parts of the movie where the animation can make the movie pretty funny, and there was also a part where our main characters, Ralph and Mumford, get attacked by office supplies, which is the result of a nightmare bomb. There are also other scenes I want to talk about, But unfortunately, I don't want to do that because I want you viewers to see this movie for yourself. Anyway, let's move on to the characters and their voice actors. These are our main heroes. Ralph, the all-purpose animal, voiced by the classic Lorenzo Music, whom you guys know as Garfield, and his silent friend Mumford. To me, these guys are known as the misfits for the movie who work in frivolity. In my eyes, they can be very incompetent, but they do have great chemistry as friends, and they are very humorous, and I think they have great potential to be heroes. Plus, I think Ralph's abilities to shapeshift into different animals are pretty similar to Beast Boy from Teen Titans. As for Mumford, well, due to his design, he's very reminiscent to the legendary Charlie Chaplin. Next we come to Flora Fauna, voiced by another Garfield voice actress, Julie Payne. This character is Greensleeve's niece. After receiving her uncle's SOS message, she becomes determined to find him. To me, Flora is a strong, smart, and independent girl, and I like the part where she distracts Botch's vultures by acting like a damsel in distress. Next is the villain of the movie, synonymous Botch, voiced by Marshall Efron, who got to be in Blue Sky's Robots, Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who, and Disney's Home on the Range. Botch is the sleazy proprietor of the grimy Merkworks. His evil plan is to send the population of the living world into a state of perpetual nightmares. In order to achieve this goal, he needs to stop time by stealing a magical spring from the cosmic clock. With time stopped, he intends to set up massive numbers of nightmare bombs and then start time again. Right before setting them off, that is. To me, Botch is a terrible and cruel employer who puts his vulture workers through all forms of physical peril with little regard or sympathy for the injuries that they sustain. He's also verbally, psychotically abusive to his main nightmare scriptwriter, Scuzzbopper, but on the other hand, he was clever to trick Ralph and Mumford to sabotage the cosmic clock. Next is the Fairy Godmother, or FGM for short, voiced by Judith Kahan. Unlike the Fairy Godmother from Disney's Cinderella, or the Fairy Godmother from Shrek 2, FGM is a no-nonsense kind of character, but in my opinion, I think she's a decent minor supporting character, like when she gives Ralph and Mumford 3 dimes to make a photo booth appear in case they need help. We also have Rod Rescue Man, voiced by James Crana, who also voices Scuzzbopper and the Frivolity Foreman. This guy is a superhero hired by FGM to help Ralph and Mumford, but he seems more interested in rescuing Flora in order to get a kiss from her. Man. In my opinion, he seems, well, less like a superhero and more like a jerkish football player. Other voice actors in the movie include Hamilton Camp and Paul Frees. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, Twice Upon a Time really seems like a movie that's really worth digging up. Big time. Though it's not exactly a perfect movie. There are times when the actors trip over their lines, due to the improvised dialogue. The story plots are questionable at times, and the animation shortcuts are pretty darn obvious. But for the most part, the movie is well animated, well acted, and it's also an entertaining fantasy road trip that feels very unique. The characters are mostly likable, and the performances are still great despite the hiccups. And the music is, without a doubt, awesome to listen to. I feel like this is one of those films that you must watch if you're an animation fan in any capacity. As for my rating, I give this movie a full 100%. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me again next time. Mustang Power!